Good morning. So every morning I sit out here, me, cup of coffee, I have this nice little view on my balcony, and I just reflect. And I have some of my best insights when I sit here in the morning. And so I thought I would take you along with me, because it's kind of like you're sitting next to me and we're having our morning coffee together. What I was thinking about this morning is why change is so hard for people. I have so many people reaching out to me and they want to change and they're having difficulty changing. The interesting thing is it comes from all spectrums. Like, it comes from other coaches. The amount of psychologists I have reaching out, therapists, like people who are even trained on the brain are also struggling as well. And this is a topic I know very well because I went through this 5.5 year cycle of not being able to change. I knew exactly who I wanted to become. I knew the steps I had to take to get there. And I continually fell on my face and wasn't able to make the progress that I wanted. And it was difficult for me because I had external success. So when I was 25, I became a millionaire through investing in stocks and cryptocurrency, mostly from Bitcoin. Bitcoin just went crazy. And I had a level of financial freedom that I never had before. And the interesting thing about that is that it led me to some of the worst years of my life, because I thought when I got the thing, I would become the person who had the thing. We usually chase external metrics because we think that once we have those things, we'll be this person, because my external reality would reflect that. I had the car, I had the watch, I could travel. That wasn't the case, because all true growth is internal, not external. And so seeing my external reality fundamentally change, but internally not changing, the rift there was very difficult for me. I'd push harder and try to be more disciplined, more motivation, more pressure on myself. It caused a lot of suffering. And that's why when people say they're stuck, it resonates with me a lot, because I was definitely stuck for quite a long time. And now, understanding what I know about the brain, it makes total sense why I was stuck. And I understand why it is so fundamentally hard for people to change, despite everyone wanting to change. It's innate in humans to want to change, to grow, to ascend to the highest version of themselves. We're creatures of meaning, and everyone wants that meaning. But a lot of us have a very hard time finding that meaning. And so this brings me to the topic of today's discussion: why is change so hard for people from the perspective of the brain? As I continue coaching and as my knowledge of the brain and neuroscience deepens, it is so painfully obvious why change is so hard. The thing to understand is that your brain has one primary objective over everything else, and it's very obvious. It wants you to survive. It has a negative bias towards you rising up and becoming the person that you want to become, for good reasons too. It almost felt insidious when I was trying to become someone else and I couldn't. It's like, why? But it actually makes a ton of sense. Let's say you have a positive outcome. Our ancestors, right? Let's go back and say, like, we have a positive outcome. You find food somewhere, and then you find food again. That's great. Then you find food again. It's great. Then you find a predator and you die. One mistake and you're dead. You have 3 goods, but you have a million good things, but then one bad thing and you're dead. So the brain's gonna favor the negative to try to keep you safer than otherwise. Modern society, it's been like, what, 200 years since it's been like super safe, advanced medicine. We have hundreds of thousands of years of evolution where we were being hunted by predators. And so the first thing to understand is that your brain always wants you to stay safe. That's why socially it can be very difficult. That's why people have a hard time speaking up. That's why people tend to be shy. Your brain is constantly trying to keep you where you are because it knows that this is safe. And the crazy thing is, it will actually influence you to stay where you are. And you have a set point, which is why you've noticed in your life, if you get too low, that's when you have the wake up call. You're like, all right, I gotta get back on my diet. I have to get back on the horse, essentially. That's why you have that at the bottom. And then at the top, let's say you make your plan to become this new person and then you fall off. That's at the top level, it pulling you back to the median. So you kind of go like this between the 2 ranges. And you see this with so many people, and you've experienced this as well, for sure. Where it's like, you said your new habits and it's going so great, and like you're so excited, and then boom, you hit a wall. And that happened to me for 5 years, 5.5 years. And it can be so frustrating, especially if you don't understand what's going on. It feels like you're a failure. It feels like there's something wrong with you. But it's really just how your brain was created. It's how mechanisms of the brain work. Because let's think about it. Let's look at the brain's point of view. All right, this person is going to this upper level of who we know it to be. And when I say who we know it to be, your brain has self-perception models, like in your prefrontal cortex. It has models of who you are fundamentally. That's why humans are so stable. Like, you don't go, unless someone has like bipolar disorder, you know someone your entire life, that is the same person the entire life for the most part. We're so consistent in our identity. And that's why when you change identity, it can be so powerful because the brain is actually fighting to keep you within its understanding of who it thinks you are. That's why at the 3-week mark, you all of a sudden lose all your motivation. That is why when you want to speak up in certain situations, you freeze. You actually feel it in your body. Your brain is doing that to you. Now that we understand kind of where the brain's coming from, right? The brain doesn't want you to become a different person because that's destabilizing, it's threatening. Who knows how the social dynamics change? So all these things are influencing you. But you are in 2026 and you want to change. So how do we actually change? And I think this is such a valuable insight. Understanding your brain wants to keep you safe and that it's going to self-sabotage you and to not buy into the self-sabotage. That's key. So what does that look like? It's like, so if you make this plan to become this person, because most people will actually make a plan, you have to expect the punches. When you're doing these habits, when you're making these plans, the first thing is you have to activate the self-perception model. So all the actions you take has to be, who am I becoming in taking these actions? Because that's different from habits. Habits is just like a rep. There's no meaning behind it. But if you take a rep because that is something that someone like you inherently does, then you're activating the self-perception models. And you might have read this in Atomic Habits. This is where a lot of people are familiar with this, where it's like, if you want to be a morning person, well, how many times does it take to become a morning person? There's no like set amount. It's not like you wake up 100 times and then you're a morning person. It's like you have to become the morning person, and waking up is proof that you are the morning person. That's the way you update the brain. Because otherwise, let's say you wake up early 80 times, then you don't, the brain's gonna say, aha, see, you're not a morning person. And then you're gonna spiral and fall. And that's how most people go about change, where they're like, not this person, they're doing the reps to become this person. And so inherently there's a gap between who they are and who they want to be. You need to immediately close the gap if you want to make change. And then the reps are not reps to get closer to that person. The reps then become evidence of you being that person. And this is where the prediction errors come. It's something I talk about a lot, where it's the predictive models of your brain. When you take an action that now is in line with this future version of yourself, you create a prediction error. The brain says, I thought you were going to act in this way, and instead you acted in this way, and therefore we were wrong. And your brain wants to get the prediction right, because what does predictability mean? Predictability means safety. If your brain can accurately predict what you're going to do, then it can keep you safer. Because remember, the brain only cares about you being safe. How this looks like for you on your journey is that you make this plan, you need to expect the punches. Regression, or like walls that you hit, are actually assigned to lean in, not to give up. Not to be like, oh, this isn't working. Oh, this is so hard. Don't push, because if you push too hard, your brain's gonna freak out and it's gonna really try to shut you down. So you don't wanna push, but I like to say lean in. You can either just like hold the line and not regress to the best of your ability. Maybe you even have to regress a little bit. That's also okay. You just don't wanna spiral. Because think about growth in life. It's usually not like this. It's like this, right? This is how stock charts, think of anything in life. It's never linear. Business, you grow business, it's always up and down. So if you have to regress a little bit to keep your momentum, do that. If you can lean into it a little bit more, do that. Do whatever feels comfortable to your nervous system. Because remember, it has to be safe. And I think with this new understanding of how your brain works, it's going to be easier for you to roll with the punches. And I hope it brings you to where you want to go. So anyway, this is my first time doing the morning coffee talk, and now it's time to get my day started. So hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one.